When they pulled the boat back to shore that morning, the men did not speak. The oars were still in the locks, the catch was still in the basket, the fish gone stiff and silver in the dawn light. There was a man's leather satchel resting on the middle bench, as if its owner had only stepped away for a moment. But there was no owner. Junior Alleyne had rowed out the night before, the way he had every full moon that whole strange season, out past the breakers toward the dark line of the trees. He never came back. And the last thing anyone heard him say 3 nights before was that he had finally learned the woman's name. "Good evening, traveler. Come in from the dark. Sit where the fire can find you. Tonight's tale comes from a small island. I will not say its name, for there are families still living who would not thank me. An island where the old people still throw the first sip of every drink onto the ground for the ones who came before. An island where the fishermen still will not cast a net after the sun goes down. I have carried this story a long way to bring it to you, so let me tell it properly, and let me begin, as we always must, not with the man, but with the tree. You have seen the silk cotton tree, perhaps, even if you did not know its name. The ceiba, the kapok, the cotton tree. It grows tall as a church and old as a grandfather's grandfather, and its roots stand up out of the earth like the buttresses of some great hall. Across these islands, the people will tell you the same thing in 100 different tongues. The silk cotton tree is not only a tree, it is a door. The old folks say the spirits live in it and beneath it, the duppies, the dead who did not go where the dead are meant to go, the jumbies who wear the shape of the living to fool the foolish. Down in the islands to the south, they whisper of the sukuyan, the old woman who sheds her wrinkled skin at night and flies as a ball of fire to drink the blood of the sleeping. And on the cattle roads after midnight they say, you may yet meet the rolling calf, dragging its chain, its eyes 2 coals of flame. But of all of them, the silk cotton tree commands the most respect and the most fear. That is why you will see one standing alone in the middle of a cleared field when every other tree was cut down long ago. No man with sense will put an axe to a silk cotton tree. They say if you cut one, you must first beg its pardon, pour rum at its roots, and ask the spirits inside to forgive you and find another home. And those who do not ask, well, those are stories for another night. The thing to understand, traveler, is this. On that island, beneath that particular tree, the people had seen something for 50 years, and for 50 years they had the good sense to leave it be. Junior Alleyne did not have that sense. But then, Junior did not believe in any of it. That, you will find, was rather the problem. Junior was not born on the island. He was born on it, you might say. But he was not of it. He went away to the mainland as a boy of 12 when his mother took work in a city far to the north, and he came back a man of 26 in good shoes, with money in his pocket, and a way of looking at the village that the village did not much care for. He came back because his grandmother had died and left him the small house at the end of the bay. A tin roof house with a porch that faced the water, and behind it a path that ran up into the trees. The neighbors were kind to him at first. They are kind people. They brought him fish and bread and bush tea, and they told him the things a man ought to know about living there again. And among the things they told him was this. "Junior," said old Miss Eulalie. She had been his grandmother's dearest friend, a tiny woman sharp as a fishhook. "Junior, you keep off that path behind the house after dark. You hear me? You especially. Keep away from the big tree on the full moon." And Junior laughed. Not unkindly, but he laughed. "Miss Eulalie," he said, "I lived 14 years in a city with 8 million people in it. You think I'm frightened of a tree?" The old woman did not laugh back. She only looked at him a long while, and then she looked away toward the hill, and she said something he did not catch, and she went home. Now, here is what Junior knew, and what he did not. He knew that every man and woman in that village, from the children to the very old, swore that on the night of the full moon you could see a woman standing beneath the silk cotton tree on a hill, standing very still, dressed in white, facing the sea. They had seen her, or said they had, for as long as anyone could remember, 50 years by Miss Eulalie's count. She had seen the woman herself as a girl and her own mother before her. What Junior did not know, what he decided in the way of clever young men, was that this was nonsense, the grief of an isolated people, a trick of moonlight on the pale buttress roots of the tree, a story passed down so long that no one remembered it was only a story. And do you know, for a good while, traveler, you might have agreed with him, because here is the honest truth of it. There was a woman who lived up that way. Her name, the few who knew it said, was Miss Verena. She lived alone in a board house deep in the bush past the silk cotton tree. An old recluse who came down to the village market perhaps twice a year, paid in worn coins, spoke to no one, and went back up the hill before dark. The children were frightened of her. The adults pitied her and let her be. So when Junior began that first month to glimpse a figure moving among the trees in the evenings, a slim woman walking the high path, he thought to himself, well, there is your ghost, a lonely old woman, and a village of people who would rather believe in spirits than knock on her door. He felt rather proud of working it out. He did not yet understand that the woman he was glimpsing in the evenings and the woman beneath the tree were not the same woman at all. The small things came first. They always do. His grandmother's old dog, a sweet lazy creature that slept on the porch, would not go up the path, not a step. Some evenings it would stand at the foot of it, with its ears flat and a low sound coming out of it that Junior had never heard a dog make, and then it would turn and crawl under the house and not come out till morning. Junior told himself the dog was old. Then there were the dreams. He had never been a man for dreams, but now every night he dreamed the same thing, that he was standing at the edge of the water at night, and someone was standing behind him, close, so close he could feel the cold come off them, and a voice was saying his name. Junior, Junior, soft, patient. And in the dream he never turned around because some animal part of him knew that he must not, and he would wake with his heart going like a drum, and the sheets soaked through. He told himself it was the heat, the strange bed, the rum, because there was rum now, most nights. He told himself that too. Then the goat went missing. Not his goat, the neighbor's, a fat brown nanny that grazed near the bottom of the hill. They found it 3 days later up past the tree, dead, with not a mark on it, not a tooth, not a wound. Just dead, with its legs folded under it, as neat as if it had lain down to sleep, and its eyes open and pointed up the hill. The village did not say much about the goat, but Junior noticed that for a week afterward every door on the bay was shut at sundown, and salt was scattered across every threshold, and Miss Eulalie hung a small red cloth on a nail above her door, and would not say why. And then one morning he found the footprints. They came up out of the water, bare feet, small, a woman's. They walked up the beach in a straight line, right up to the foot of his porch steps. And there they stopped. They did not turn around. They did not go back. They simply ended at the bottom of his steps, as if whoever made them had stepped up onto the porch. But there were no prints on the porch, and his door had been locked all night. Now I will be fair to Junior, traveler, because he was fair to himself. He stood on that beach a long time, and he thought of 3 things. He thought, a woman came up out of the sea in the night and stood at my steps. That is a true and frightening thing. But it is a thing a living woman could do. A swimmer, a mad woman, Miss Verena from up the hill, come down to frighten me. He thought, or the tide came in and washed away the rest. And I am reading a story into wet sand because the old people have got into my head. And he thought, and this is the one he sat with longest, standing there as the sun came up. Or I made these prints myself, in the night, walking in my sleep, and dreamed a voice to go with them. He did not know which of the 3 frightened him most. He told no one, but that day, for the first time, when he passed Miss Eulalie's house, he stopped, and he asked her, casual, a young man's voice, but not quite casual enough. He asked her who Miss Verena was, the old woman up the hill. And Miss Eulalie went very still over her washing, and she said, Verena. Now, where you hear that name, Junior? And he told her. From the market women they had pointed the old recluse out to him once. Miss Eulalie was quiet a moment. Then she said, careful, like a woman stepping between sharp stones. You stay away from up the hill, Junior. Not just the tree, all of it. And she would say no more. He should have listened, traveler. But by then, and this is the part of the story the village finds hardest to tell, by then he had already met her. It was the full moon that did it. He had not meant to go up the path. He would say so afterward, the few times he spoke of it at all. He would say, "I did not decide to go. I was simply already going." He had been drinking on the porch, watching the moon come up huge and orange out of the water, and he heard the voice from his dreams say his name, clear this time, awake behind him, and when he turned there was no one, and the dog was screaming under the house, and his feet were already on the path. And there, beneath the tree, was the woman. She was not old. That was the first wrong thing, though he was too far gone to feel it as wrong. The village spoke of an old woman, a recluse. But the woman beneath the tree was young, younger than him perhaps, and she was beautiful in a way that stopped the breath in his chest. She was dressed in white, a long pale dress gone soft and grey at the hem. Her feet were bare, her hair was loose and very dark, and she was facing the sea, and she did not turn as he came near. And yet he knew that she had been waiting for him. "You took a long time," she said, and her voice was the voice from the dream. "I will not give you, traveller, all the nights that followed, because there were many, and because Junior would never tell them all. But I will tell you the shape of them." He went up the hill to her, not every night, but every night the moon gave enough light to find the path. They would sit beneath the great tree among the standing roots, and they would talk, and he was happier in those hours than he had ever been in his life, and he could never afterward remember a single word that was said. She told him her name was Verena. He thought, God help him, he thought he had solved it again, the old recluse. Verena. She is not old at all. The village invented an old woman out of a young one they rarely see, the way frightened people will. She lives alone up here, and she is lonely, as I am lonely. And there is nothing here but two lonely people and a great deal of foolish talk. And so he loved her, as much as a man can love a thing he does not understand. But the wrong things kept coming, traveller, and a man cannot drink fast enough to drown them all. She was never warm. He held her hands, and they were cool as the underside of a stone, even on the hottest night. She never ate the food he brought. She turned the conversation always away from the day and the village and the living, and always, always back toward the sea. "You should come out to me, Junior," she would say. "Out on the water. That is where I am happiest." And he would laugh and say he was no fisherman, and she would smile and look at the sea and say nothing. And once, only once, he reached to touch her face, and his fingers passed through the cold of her cheek and felt, just for a moment, only the cold, with nothing beneath it. He told himself it was the rum. He told himself a great many things. But the night came when he could not tell himself anything any more. It had rained, the path was soft as bread, and they were walking down together, she a step behind him, and he looked back to offer her his hand, and he saw the path behind him. He saw his own footprints, deep in the wet earth, filling slowly with water, and beside them, where she walked, close enough that her dress brushed his arm, the mud was smooth, unbroken, untouched. She left no footprints. He stood in the rain, and he looked at the ground, and every story Miss Eulalie had ever told him came up out of the dark all at once, and he understood finally the three explanations he had carried so long: the lonely woman, the trick of the eye, his own broken mind. He understood that not one of them could put a footprint into mud and then take it away again. When he looked up, she was watching him, and she was not smiling now. "You weren't supposed to look," she said, soft, sad. "They never can help it. They always look." And Junior ran. He ran straight down to Miss Eulalie's, and he beat on her door until she opened it, and he stood there soaked through and shaking and unable to speak, and the old woman looked at his face and said only, "So, you went up." And then she did a thing he never forgot. She did not say, "I told you so." She took him in, and she sat him down, and she lit a second lamp, and she went to a tin box she kept beneath her bed, and she took out something wrapped in cloth, and she put it on the table in front of him. It was a photograph, old, cracked, a village gathering 50 years gone, all in their Sunday best, squinting at a camera under a hard old sun. "There," said Miss Eulalie, and her finger came down on a young woman near the edge of the picture. A slim young woman, in a pale dress, with loose dark hair, and a face Junior knew. The face he had touched in the moonlight. "Verena," said Miss Eulalie. "My cousin. She was 22. And then she told him the story the village does not tell to strangers, and had never told to Junior because Junior had laughed. 50 years before, a young woman named Verena had loved a fisherman, and the fisherman had drowned out past the reef on a calm night when the sea had no right to take anyone, and Verena, mad with grief, had gone up to the silk cotton tree on the night of the full moon, the door between the worlds, and she had begged the spirits in it to give him back, or to take her to him. And the next morning she was gone. They never found her body. They found only her footprints leading up the beach, out of the village, toward the tree. And they did not stop at the tree. They went past it, and they came back down, a second set walking the other way down to the water, and those went into the sea and did not come out. From that night, said Miss Eulalie, she standing under that tree every full moon, facing the water, waiting. Some say she waiting for him still. Some say, and here the old woman's voice dropped, some say, what come back down that hill that morning was not Verena at all, that she asked the tree for her love returned, and the tree sends something in her shape to fetch the lonely ones out to the water where her man is, one every few years, a young man, a lonely man, a man who don't believe. She looked at him, a man who would laugh Junior and go up the hill. Junior swore that night that he would never go up the hill again, and he meant it. Miss Eulalie hung the red cloth above his door and scattered the salt herself. For 2 nights he did not go. On the 3rd night, the neighbors heard him on his porch, late, talking low and warm and happy to someone in the dark, the way a man talks to a woman he loves, and one of them, brave or foolish, went down with a lamp to see who Junior was talking to at that hour. There was no one there. Only Junior sitting on his steps, smiling at the empty dark and the wet print of 2 small bare feet on the boards beside him, leading down toward the water. "I learned her name," he said, when the neighbor spoke to him. He did not seem to see the lamp. "Her real name. She tell me tonight. Now I can find her." And in the morning the boat was gone, and by the next morning it had come back without him. The oars in the locks, the catch gone stiff, the leather satchel on the bench, and not a single footprint on the wet sand of the shore where a man might have stepped out of it. Now, you will want me to tell you what it was. I can hear it in you sitting there. You want me to say ghost or spirit or jumbie in the woman's shape and close the box and let you sleep. But I have told this story many years, traveler, and I will tell you what I have come to believe, which is this. Junior Alleyne was a sad case, a young man, half a stranger to his own home, drinking alone in a house full of his dead grandmother's things, dreaming bad dreams, walking in his sleep, his mind coming apart at the seams. Who heard the old stories and dressed his sickness in them? Who walked out into the sea one night because the broken part of him told him a beautiful woman was waiting there? That is a true story, that one. It explains the footprints, his. It explains the woman, a face from a photograph he had seen on Miss Eulalie's table and forgotten he'd seen. It explains everything. Almost everything. It does not explain the woman the whole village watched beneath that tree for 50 years, long before Junior was born, long before there was a Junior to go mad. But on the night of the full moon, when the tide is high, you may still go up to the hill. I do not advise it, and you may stand at the bottom of the path, and you will see her, standing beneath the silk cotton tree, dressed in white, facing the sea, waiting. The silk cotton tree is real, traveler, and so is the fear of it. From Jamaica to Trinidad, from Barbados down to the islands of the south, the ceiba, the silk cotton tree, has been held sacred and feared for centuries. It is a belief that crossed the ocean. In West Africa, among the Akan and others whose descendants were carried to these islands in chains, the great silk cotton tree was already known as a dwelling place of spirits, a meeting point of the seen and unseen worlds. That belief did not die in the crossing. The people who tell you not to cut one are keeping a promise older than the island's own name. Was there ever a real Verena? I cannot tell you. Disappearances are real. The sea is very real, and it has never once given a reason. But that, perhaps, is why the stories last, because they teach us to respect it. That last drop, That is for the ones who came before. The old people would want me to. And on a night like this, traveler, it does no harm to be polite to the dark. Remember this when you leave here. Not every story from these islands is meant to be forgotten. Some are not stories at all. Some are warnings handed down by people who paid for them so that you would not have to. So when an old woman tells you to keep off a certain path, believe her. Until next time, keep your lantern lit.